Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Thursday, July 20th. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things because I am referring to gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our morning by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I do miss things. If you have something to add to the ideas I discussed today, please chime in the comments section below. As a reminder, I will be on vacation starting July 24th, and I will be back with you again on August 1st. During this time, I won't be posting new videos or responding to comments, but feel free to go back and watch old videos that you haven't seen yet in order to maintain this habit of your morning routine. And if you want to comment on any of those old videos, I will read all of your comments when I return. Today's daily Stoic reading, titled Made for Justice, begins with a quote from Marcus Aurelius. "The unjust person acts against the gods, for insofar as the nature of the universe made rational creatures for the sake of each other, with an eye toward mutual benefit based on true value, and never for harm, anyone breaking nature's will obviously acts against the oldest of gods." The authors add, "We say of the most heinous acts that they are crimes against nature. We consider certain things to be an affront against humanity, saying, this violates everything we hold dear. However much we differ in religion, upbringing, politics, class, or gender, we can come together in agreement there. Why? Because our sense of justice goes marrow deep. We don't like it when people cut in line. We don't like freeloaders. We pass laws that protect the defenseless, and we pay our taxes, agreeing in part to redistribute our wealth to those in need. At the same time, we think that if we think we can get away with it, we try to cheat or bend the rules. To paraphrase Bill Walsh, when left to our own devices, many of us individuals seek lower ground like water. The key then is to support our natural inclination to justice with strong boundaries and strong commitments, to embrace, as Lincoln urged a divided, angry nation to do, the better angels of our nature." So, there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing I'll say is that whenever I hear someone using the word "we" to refer to a large group of people, I think it's telling me more about that person than it is about the group of people to whom they're referring. Making assumptions about anyone outside of yourself is tricky, but making assumptions about large groups of people is even trickier. So, some of the assumptions that the authors have made about people in general here that I don't agree with include the whole world having the same waiting in line norms, all of humanity having the same perspective on freeloaders, or even having a word for that idea, and everyone being okay with paying taxes or the redistribution of wealth. I find the idea that most people will try to cheat or bend the rules if they think they can get away with it very interesting. Personally, I know that I won't try to bend a rule if I agree with the importance of said rule. But if I think a rule is completely needless or arbitrary, I won't just bend it, I will break it if I can, and I won't really feel guilty. And because this is how I am, this is how I want to assume that most people are. But I know that humanity is incredibly varied and all of our brains work differently. So let me know your perspective on this topic. Would you break a rule that you agreed with if you felt like it was like just a one-time thing that no one would notice? I'm also aware that what most people will admit to on a public forum like the comment section of this video is probably going to deviate at least a little bit from the truth of their actual tendencies. I find that very interesting as well, because it reinforces a belief that I've held for some time, which is that morality is a social construct. Usually, when someone labels something as a social construct, they're doing so to decrease its validity, but I'm not trying to do that with morality. On the contrary, I think the social nature of morality emphasizes its value, because I think the primary purpose of morality is to govern how humans interact with each other. I also like to think that it's useful to expand this purpose of morality to include the way that humans interact with animals and our environment. I would include animals because animals can feel things, and I would include the environment because it's the home of all the feeling creatures who are negatively affected when the environment is damaged. Now, obviously, my atheist perspective is starting to butt heads with the authors of the Daily Stoic a bit, but that's okay with me, because I think that non-religious and religious people have more in common than we tend to realize. For example, I agree with the authors that most people have something within us that guides our conscience or our sense of right and wrong. A few episodes back, I shared the idea of the unique purpose of humanity being making the world more humane. I believe this episode was titled Grow Up and Free Yourself, and if you haven't already listened to that one, I will put a link in the description of this video for you. I love the idea of, making the world more humane as humanity's purpose, and for me, this concept feels very tied up with the idea of morality. In that episode, I read from Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff, which is currently my top book recommendation. So if you're interested in reading it cover to cover by yourself, you can get your own copy at the link in the description. Unfortunately, my copy of Team Human is currently out on loan, so I can't read to you from it today. But maybe that's for the best, because it forces me to stop relying on my favorite book. Instead, I am going to read to you from Doing Good Better by William MacAskill. I picked this book up because I was looking for guidance on how to quantify morality or ethical actions, specifically for the context of my graphic design business. Now, this book probably isn't for everyone, because many people might not be interested in mathematically quantifying right and wrong, but I personally found it very interesting. One of my main takeaways from this book was learning about the QALY, or the Quality Adjusted Life Year, which takes into account the quality and quantity of life lived and is used to calculate the effectiveness of charities. If you're interested in learning more about this, I talked a bit about it in the episode titled What is Graphic Design? And I'll put a link to that one down below as well. I found Doing Good Better through the Effective Altruism community. According to their website, Effective Altruism is a research field and a practical community that aims to find the best ways to help others and put them into practice. If you're interested in learning more about effective altruism, you can visit their website, and that is another link that you can find in the description of this video. So this book gets into the nitty-gritty of analyzing charities and explores altruism in a very technical way, but I am not going to explore anything super technical with you this morning. Instead, I'm going to read the afterword to this paperback edition. So William MacAskill writes, "It's been a pleasure to see the hardcover edition of Doing Good Better receive so many positive responses from reviewers and readers alike. In the months since publication, I've heard countless stories of people who have changed their giving or career plans based on what they've read, and who feel confident that they're having a bigger positive impact on the world than they were before. Of course, effective altruism continues to be controversial to some. For example, some reviewers emphasized the personal nature of giving and argued that we should give to causes we are passionate about, or that benefit those in our own countries and communities, even if they don't have the biggest overall impact. Other critics argued that effective altruism is too focused on the symptoms of poverty, such as ill health, instead of on the root causes of poverty, like poor education, corrupt or oppressive governments, war, and so on, which might be best tackled with systemic change. Those of us in the effective altruism community fielded similar arguments long before the book was published, and have spent a lot of time and energy considering these viewpoints. I believe that proponents of local philanthropy simply fail to understand just how much more impact the most effective causes have when compared with domestic ones. In its early days, the charity GiveWell spent years trying to find domestic charities that had a significant impact, and concluded that the difference you could make in people's lives in the United States is tiny compared with the difference you can make in the lives of the extreme poor in other parts of the world. As for those who urge us to focus on the root causes of poverty, my response is that we simply don't know what the root causes of poverty are. In the 20th century, some countries, such as South Korea and Taiwan, transitioned out of poverty, and others, such as Ethiopia and Kenya, didn't. We have a very weak understanding of why this is the case. Given that we don't know what causes poverty, it's very difficult for individuals to tackle them at their source. Some critics, however, have simply misunderstood effective altruism by viewing it as a set of recommendations rather than as a question, which is, how can I do the most good? And a methodology for answering that question. The most important part of science is not the body of knowledge we have built up. Instead, it's the scientific method, the use of proofs, models, and experiments that allow us to further our understanding of the world. In just the same way, the most exciting part of effective altruism is not the recommendations I make in this book, but rather the methodology with which we can try to figure out how to do the most good. This misunderstanding came out most clearly during what is known in the development community as the Worm Wars debate. On July 2nd, 2015, just 6 days before the publication of this book, the International Journal of Epidemiology published 2 new analyses of the most important study of deworming. In response, the popular British science writer Ben Goldacre ran a long op-ed on BuzzFeed News, summarizing the new analyses and stating that they clearly showed the original study containing major flaws. The Guardian went even further, arguing that the new analyses effectively debunked the merits of mass deworming programs. And because my colleagues and I point to deworming as one of the most impactful causes, some commenters even suggested that these new analyses undermined the case for effective altruism in general. As it happened, though, the significance of the new analyses was blown out of proportion by the media. After examining the reports on my own, I found that they only disproved one specific part of the study, which claimed that mass deworming programs benefited both the children who had been treated as well as untreated children who attended schools up to 6 kilometers away. The new analyses claimed that this spillover benefit only applied to those who were up to 3 kilometers away. The new analyses also found some coding and numerical errors in the study, but these did not affect its core claims. However, for the sake of argument, let's suppose the new analyses had, in fact, proved without a doubt that deworming was not as high impact as originally believed. Does this mean that, as a philosophy, effective altruism is fundamentally flawed? No. The attempt to do the most good you can means you recognize that you will need to change your beliefs in light of new evidence. It's precisely this commitment to cause neutrality, a willingness to support whatever cause evidence suggests has the highest impact, rather than the one you happen to be the most attached to, that makes effective altruism so powerful. If the case for deworming had turned out to be weaker than we'd thought, then we would have taken that lesson to heart and changed the focus of our efforts. I'm sure that many of the recommendations made in this book will eventually become obsolete as we refine our search, collect new data, and investigate new technologies and systems that change the ways we give back. And I am certain there are important cause areas that we have overlooked. But if anything, this makes effective altruism even more important, because it constantly forces us to ask questions and follow the evidence. We know we will never do good perfectly, but we can always strive to do good better. And that afterword was published in 2016. So the idea that I'm offering to you this morning is that what if morality is something that we are creating developing and collaborating on, rather than a set of universal laws that has been in place since the beginning of time. I like this idea because I like the idea of making morality even more moral, making the world ever more humane, reducing suffering more and more with each passing decade. Let me know what you guys think of this. But for now, I am going to move on to our feel-good moment. I'll be reading from Art as Therapy by Alain de Botton and John Armstrong. The authors introduce the concept of enlightened capitalism towards the end of this book, which they say means a business culture devoted to what is genuinely worthwhile and admirable, as well as to the many disciplines required to flourish in a competitive marketplace. This idea relates to our discussion about morality because it asserts that we can improve upon our current economic systems in a way that aligns them better with our morality and makes them more humane. So the authors write, capitalism has not yet learned to harness fully the longing for honor to generate good outcomes. It hasn't grasped the profound need to feel that one's life is directed toward fine and worthy goals, and the possibility this brings for people to be attracted to invest for the sake of other ends than the absolute maximization of private wealth. Money is the most basic kind of reward, because in principle it can be converted into so many other things. But there are other kinds of rewards that the successful might seek, such as glory, dignity, the love of succeeding generations. These are noble goods. It has been unfortunate that the value system of capitalism has accelerated at a time when our collective hold on the meaning of such things has, for other reasons, weakened. It can now feel pompous or silly to talk of glory or an immortal name. It feels somehow old-fashioned or unsophisticated, especially when you could be talking of money instead. Such ideas, though, are important counterweights to purely financial standards of achievement. They have the potential to grip the soul and guide ambition. If it is to flourish, a society needs to motivate people to undertake goals that go beyond the economic. Many great human achievements could only have been undertaken by people who focused on other things alongside money. This isn't to advocate the pursuit of honor over money, rather a more judicious balancing between the legitimate claims of both elements. The appetite for money, shorn of moral value, which can be observed at the top of the commercial hierarchy, has been ruinous in its effects on society as a whole. Yet it doesn't stem from greed. It is caused by the fact that the money has been left in sole possession of the field of honor, that it is the only standard that we know how to aim for and can reliably be congratulated for having attained. The good news is that most successful business people are already not working for money. They are pursuing money not for its own sake, but for the love and respect it affords them. They seem relentlessly focused on making money because they are competitive people, and because winning currently means doing so in the money game, the primary gateway to status, and, to stretch the word a little, love. For everyone's sake, we need to make sure that we can give these competitive types a more diverse set of laurel wreaths to aim for. A responsible society would recognize the strength of this hunger for honor and exploit it properly for the good of all. We will live in more beautiful, wise, and humane communities when we have learned to reorient the system of ambition, when the most driven and energetic individuals have the chance to win honor through work that taps into mankind's highest needs. We should ensure that the longings for beauty, truth, and kindness, which are innate to the human soul, but which currently emerge for plutocrats only in bursts of late-life philanthropy, have a chance to flourish across their whole career in everyday economic activities. In a nuanced version of capitalism, the rich would be happy with slightly lower returns on their money in exchange for acquiring more diverse and beguiling laurels, and in return, ordinary citizens would be blessed with greatly more dignified places to work, live, and shop. So the idea of enlightened capitalism is a feel-good idea for me because it suggests that there is nothing innately wrong with the human competitive urges that have led to our current economic system. But it also acknowledges that things as they are need quite a bit of improvement, to say the least. And best of all, it provides hope that we can make things better. For our focus moment today, I simply want to invite you to consider what morality means to you. Think about how you were introduced to the ideas of right and wrong as a child. If you, like me, weren't given the best version of morality from your parents or caregivers, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning you don't have to throw away everything you were taught as a child. I think it means that you just have quite a bit more creative freedom in your own personal project to develop the best version of morality that you can. And once you've gotten to a good place with this, you can start to collaborate with others who are working on their own personal morality projects. And eventually, large groups of us can get together, cooperating on developing the most humane world we can. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again tomorrow.